we're taking another in-depth look at the Millcreek incident involving ICE agents and Unified Police. However, different questioning here and new questions now as to whether Unified Police should have dropped the traffic citation against the driver at the center of this incident. That's because of the lane he chose to drive in, the honking his horn at federal agents. And I talked with Millcreek Mayor Jeff Silvestrini today to get his take on this part of the situation. Did UPD get this right in dropping the citation?
I believe that they did, on the basis of conflicting statements from ICE agents to them, which their body cam video, they report about that. And then the surveillance video doesn't give any indication that there was any swerving toward these officers. So, and then there was some question, I think, that they raised about whether there was traffic in the what would be the inbound lane, whether he could have gotten over or not. Maybe there was opportunity for that, but anyway, they made the call to dismiss the citation, not me.
So much of this was based on emotion or personal feeling towards certain individuals or a bigger picture event. How much of that played into this, do you feel like? All of this really stemmed from, I guess, a situation where someone didn't like someone didn't like the actions that were taken, and then ultimately it blew up into this big thing that involved you spending a whole lot of time on it for something that really was rather minimal in the grand scheme of things of what you probably want to be spending your time on.
Well, for sure, this is not the kind of thing that I like to spend my time on, and it hasn't been productive except for except to the extent that what I've done is to reinforce the idea that we're going to respect civil rights of people that either live or work in Millcreek. Okay, but yeah, it's not something I want to spend my time on. And as to the severity of the event or what caused it, emotions, I think it is something that is purely driven by emotion. That's kind of the problem with it, and I don't approve of Mr. Collin, yelling what he yelled, as I understand it, to, police officers. I believe that police officers are worthy of respect, but that is a free speech issue, and where I think this went south really is that trained officers who are, not only are they trained to not react to that kind of behavior, but and unfortunately they experience it too frequently, according to what I've heard from my officers. So they professionals let that roll off your back, and frankly, in order, being a police officer is a hard job, but there's also a professional responsibility that goes with it. And we have to expect that officers will follow their training and act as professionals. And the other thing that happened in this, if it was just purely an emotionally caused incident, that certainly does not warrant pulling, weapons on somebody who's driving. All right, that's the other aspect of this that I was concerned about, because I think there's a huge overreaction and a power dynamic here where officers should not be drawing weapons on because they're mad. That is the worst time for an officer to draw a weapon, totally against what their training would say.
With their involvement in your community and other communities here in Utah, how much does ICE owe it to people to be transparent to some degree about responding to allegations like this, or just being more transparent in general with some of the inner workings or some of the workings that people are seeing in their communities?
So, part of what I'm concerned about here is communication between ICE and our law enforcement. It typically, when a federal agency operates in a city like Millcreek, they give a heads up to our department, and there are a lot of reasons why that makes sense. So there's, it removes confusion. It may enable our guys to respond more quickly if the federal agency does require assistance. I mean, our officers are going to assist them if they need help, right? So that's kind of what I would hope to come out of this ultimately is better communication between federal agencies and our police department. I do hope this sends a message to federal agencies that that it's important to me and to our police and our city that the civil rights of American citizens be respected.
So next, I wanted a law enforcement perspective on this incident. So I reached out to Matt Evans, a former Salt Lake City police officer who's conducted a number of traffic stops in his career, to get his take. And here is what he shared with me today.
You got an individual who was upset about the situation, right, and not acting the way like everyone else would act. But the question is, were they doing anything that really, prohibited your law enforcement action, right? Like, were they doing anything that was threatening or that was disrupting their investigation or the interaction they're having with, someone, especially someone who's not, related, right? Like, that's always the thing you have to weigh.
Was there actually a traffic violation there that they could have cited him for?
Um, so just like honking your horn, like making unreasonable sounds, like that was a violation. I don't know, I cannot remember off the hand if that was a primary offense, but it was a thing. And that can be the key, right? Also, depending on the street and whatever, do you have to give way? Especially, I mean, if there is clearance and you have the ability, yes, Utah law, you have to get over that next lane and give that birth. But again, is it necessary, right? Does it fulfill some sort of public need or necessity or safety requirement to stop that individual to give them a ticket just because they honked and drove by because it is a hot topic, or just to let it go and move on? We always try to evaluate traffic stops like, is this you being punitive, right? Is this you trying to exert your influence just because you don't like their behavior? Like, what's the ultimate value of the stop?
How about Utah's move over law for emergency responders on the side of the road? This was 2 lanes of travel, and there was no one next to him from the surveillance video. Does that
Yeah, I
apply
mean,
here?
you're supposed to move over, right? If you have the ability and timing to move over, you're supposed to move over. It's a safety thing. A lot of people don't follow it. It's amazing how many people get away with either more than likely just not realizing it and just, don't do it. But it is extremely dangerous. It's something we taught and trained all our officers to be careful, because officers still get hit all the time, with that car in that travel lane right next to their stop.
Listen, obviously, you touched on a hot button issue. A lot of people are talking about the overall significance of immigration and customs enforcement in communities, and there's people that don't like it. And I think that's very obvious. This individual even admits, I don't like ICE. That alone is not enough to do anything, which the UPD officer recognized that is not a crime. But over the overall situation of dropping the citation and then seeing the video surveillance come out, pulls out of the parking lot, goes into that far lane where those officers are, maybe doesn't necessarily swerve because the video doesn't give us a clear picture, honks, which at one point may or may not have been some sort of traffic related citable offense. When you look at all of that, did UPD get it right in dropping this with the evidence they had?
Yes, I think it sets a bad precedence to for that to be allowed, right? Like, we don't want to, we as law enforcement, even though I'm retired, we don't want to convey that older image of like, hey, this guy's annoying me, I'm going to give him a ticket, I'm going to throw him up against the wall, whatever it is, right? We want to stop doing that. And again, I'm sure there's emotions even within law enforcement, for and against on this topic, right? It's universal. And even we have feelings. We just don't want to send that messaging anymore. I know that's what everybody I spoke with that work with, but there's always going to be people that are going to do that, and that's just the unfortunate part of that job. But yeah, I think they got it right.
If this was a local officer, could this have ended differently? Do you think they even would have bothered to pull the individual over? Or is it because of the emotions being just heightened right now and how, in a way, politicized this is?
No, I mean, it could have happened. It could have happened either way for any department and any agency at any time, right? It's just, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times people have honked and flipped me off or swore at me when I was, on a traffic stop. I'd have even people come up like, what'd you pull them over for? Like, trying to question me, and they'd get a little too close. I'm like, look, go mind your business, like, and sometimes you'd have a negative reaction or hopefully a positive reaction or whatever. Like, it happens all the time, but is it worth it wasting your time to do this, to teach this person a lesson? That's just, it doesn't further anything, right? They're just going to still be mad. Doesn't fix anything. They haven't learned a lesson, but maybe you feel better because, you know, they honked at you or whatever. Like, it just, you got to look for a bigger picture, but it's tough because emotions can run high.
So I reached out to Unified Police today for an interview with their police chief about this. They declined, and they said they won't be speaking any further on this topic. And on Tuesday, UPD shared a lengthy statement. They had mentioned they had not seen the incident in their own person, being there on scene when it took place. And ICE agents would need to provide statements and testify in court. Now, 2 out of the 3 agents declined to do that. The agents suggested issuing a citation for failure to yield to an emergency vehicle, which is what I was hoping to ask UPD about, since the surveillance video shows the driver in the closest lane to the agents with a potential opportunity there to move over into the other lane, something that is mentioned in Utah's move over law and something that we talk about each year here on KUTV 2 News. UPD actually reviewed the footage, and that footage didn't show the driver necessarily swerving at any point towards the agents, so they dismissed their citation. This doesn't reference the video showing that the driver seemingly chose to drive close to the agents in that lane, potentially violating Utah code. Again, something we wanted to speak to the chief of Unified Police about. To read more about this, we have an article right now at KUTV.com.